Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Naomi, and today we're going to do a yoga practice together to help you create more healthy tone for your pelvic floor. So for this yoga practice, you will need a block or something that works like a block. I also have a step stool right here. You could use something like this. Or if you have stairs in your house, I don't, but if you do, you could actually use stairs and just use the bottom stair for the one exercise that we're going to use a block for. So make sure you have a block handy, and let's get started. So we're actually going to start with some squats. And in fact, this entire practice is going to be based around the idea of doing squats. So start with your legs a little bit wider than hip width apart. Turn your feet out very slightly, and then bend your knees, take your butt back, and lift your hips up. Bend your knees, take your butt back, and lift your hips up. And I'm going to turn to the side so that you can see what I mean when I say take your butt back. So knees bend, butt goes back, and you lift back up. What you want to avoid is like butt forward, that like tucked feeling, because what you're trying to do is create tone for your pelvic floor. So a few more times. Bend your knees, butt goes back and up. Bend your knees, butt goes back, and hips up. Bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up. Bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up. Okay, and then just one more time like this. Bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up. And then I want you to step your feet together, or not quite together, so they're about hip width apart, maybe just a fraction wider than hip width. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to do a squat. Now, if you have trouble doing a squat, you can hold onto a wall. If you have a chair nearby, you could use a chair as well. But all you're going to do here is you're going to start with this slightly more narrow squat, butt goes back and hips up, right? So you're going to do this narrow squat, butt goes back, hips up, and then you're going to step right leg out to that slightly wider squat, butt goes down and back, hips up, step your right leg back in, squat, butt goes down, hips up, left foot out, okay? Bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up, step your left foot in, butt goes down, hips go back, and it doesn't have to be very far. Hips back up, and now I'm stepping my right foot out, butt goes back, hips up, step your right foot in, butt goes back, hips up, left foot goes out, a little wider than your hips, butt goes back, hips up, step it back in. One more time to both sides. So butt goes down, hips up, and then step right foot out to the right. Take your butt down and back, hips up. Step your right foot in, bend your knees, butt goes back. Pull your hips up. One more time to the left. Step your left foot out, hips go down and back. Lift your hips up, step your left foot in once more, butt goes down, hips go back, and lift your hips up. So what you might feel when you do these squats, and you can do one with me right now if you like, but when you do a squat, especially if your butt is going back instead of like trying to tuck it forward, and we have a tendency to like tuck in to try to like hide the booty, or to create this protective like tucked action, which we think will sort of help engage not only our core muscles, but our pelvic floor. What it actually does is the opposite. So if I'm tucking in like this, I'm tightening part of my pelvic floor, and the front, or not the front, but another part of it is sort of slack, right? So if I'm over tightening one part and the other part is really slack, then that's not creating healthy tone. So you really want to avoid like this butt squeezing, pelvis thrusting, hips forward situation, right? You want to allow your butt to go back freely, right? So do this with me right now. It's going to feel totally ridiculous, and that's fine. In fact, that's fantastic. Bend your knees, feet wider than hips. Send your butt back and just like wiggle it a little. Shake it. Shake your butt. Be totally ridiculous. This is not twerking. I mean, you could do that too, but this is not that. And you should feel movement in your pelvic floor. That's actually what you're after. Okay, like you're not trying to create this pulling up, this tightening and restriction. You're creating something that should feel like a trampoline, right? You can drop down and go back up. So, think of it as like, you don't want it to be so rigid that if you drop something on it, it would break, right? You want your pelvic floor to be able to expand and to contract. So with that in mind, we're going to add the block now, or your step stool if you have it. So place the block. It'll be on the side where your right foot is going to be. So place your right foot up on the block or your step stool, or if you need to go to the stairs, take me with you to your stairs. Right foot is on the block, left foot is slightly to the left and slightly wider than hip width. Bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up. Bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up. And I'll turn to the side in just a sec so you can see. Bend your knees, hips go back and up. Bend your knees, take your butt back and up. Okay, bend your knees, butt goes back and up. Bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up. Last one like this. Bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up. And now I want you to add. Okay, so bend your knees, butt goes back, and now push into your right leg and lift your left knee up. Lower your left foot down, bend your knees, push up, left knee up. Left foot down, bend your knees, butt back, stand up, left leg up. And again, use a wall if you need to. This is not about balance. Bend your knees, push into your right leg, left knee up. 2 more like this. Left foot down, bend your knees, and then pull your left knee up. Last one. Step your left foot out, bend your knees, and then pull your left knee up, and then put your left foot down. And switch sides. So take the block over to the left, place the block underneath your left foot. And again, if you're using stairs, you would just step your left foot up on the bottom stair and your right foot is on the ground, okay? Same idea here. You're going to do 6 without lifting and then the last 6 with. So bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up. Bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up. Bend your knees, your butt goes back, and then pull your hips up. Bend your knees, butt goes back, and try to be aware of what's happening in your pelvis. And then pull your hips up. 2 more like this. Bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up. Bend your knees, butt goes back, hips up. Now we're adding that lift of your right leg. So bend your knees, butt goes back. Now push into your left leg, right knee comes up. Step your right foot down, bend your knees, butt back, and then push into your left leg, right knee up. Right foot down, squat. Push into your left leg, right knee up. Right foot out, bend your knees, butt back. Push into your left leg, right knee up. 2 more. Right foot steps out, bend your knees, butt back. And then right knee up. Last one. Bend your knees as your right foot comes down, butt goes back. And then lift your right knee up. Put your right foot down and get the block out of the way. So you shouldn't need the block again for what we're going to finish with. But what I want you to get the idea of is that asymmetry or asymmetrical action is super healthy for your pelvic floor. Okay, and even that lift of the leg, right? That action, also really good because you're creating movement forward and back, creating a lift. Again, standing on the block just creates more action for your pelvic floor. And here's a really fun fact before we get into the last one. Your pelvic floor is part of your core. Right? So creating more tone in your pelvic floor also creates more action and engagement in your core. And this is not about creating 6-pack abs. This is about creating core stability so that you feel more connected, more powerful, stronger, so that you feel more resilient, right? Physically, emotionally, all of it. Okay, so when you create that lift in your pelvic floor, when you create healthy tone, you also create healthy tone in through your entire core. It's very exciting. Okay, so step your feet out wider than you have so far. Turn your feet out on the diagonal so that if you bench your knees and your toes are pointing roughly in the same direction, and it's a nice wide squat. Okay, some people call this like a goddess squat. You can call it a sumo squat. You can call it like an extra wide or double wide squat, whatever you're into. But feet turn out, and we're going to do a few of these without moving, and then we're going to add. So bend your knees, hips go down, and then hips up. Bend your knees, hips go down, hips up. Bend your knees, hips go down, hips up. Bend your knees, hips go down, hips up. Now, if you wanted to add a little bit more action, and I'm pulling my heels in just a little bit to help this, you could bend your knees, hips go down, and then as you lift your hips up, lift your heels up. Okay, bend your knees, hips go down, and then as you lift your hips, your heels come up too. Bend your knees, hips go down, and then as you lift up, heels come up too. Just 2 more like that. Bend your knees, hips go down, and then heels come up as hips come up. I know. And then last one, bend your knees, hips go down, and lift your hips, heels come up, and then put your heels down. Now, heels lifting up, that's extra. That's not the most important thing, but that does just add a little bit more of different action for your core muscles and your pelvic floor muscles. Okay, so now we're going to add some of that asymmetry that we did, like we did with the block. The only difference is right now that you're going to add it within your own body. Okay, so come into that wide-legged squat, knees bend, in line with your toes, and then turn your right knee towards your left, tap your right knee down, lift your knee up, and come back to that sumo squat. Then go to the other direction. Turn your left knee in, tap your left knee down, lift it up, come back to the sumo squat. Go back. Right knee comes in, tap it down, lift it up, turn it out. Again to the right, left knee comes down and up, turn your knee back out. 2 more times. Right knee in and down, lift back up, heel down, and then left knee in and down, lift your knee up and turn your toes out. Okay, last time, right knee goes in and down, lift it back up, turn it out, right heel comes down, and then left knee turns in, tap your knee down, lift your knee and heel, put it down, lift your hips. Okay, really great action for creating that squat. We're creating good tone in your pelvic floor, so it's moving down and up, but also adding that asymmetry of turning in. Now we're gonna add one more pose that you've already done. We're just adding it to this flow. So I'll move through it slowly, don't worry. If balance is an issue, have a wall behind you or have a chair in front of you. Okay, either of those things can just help create more stability for you so that you don't really feel like you're about to fall over, because this is not about balance. This is, again, about toning your pelvic floor. Okay, so balance is not the primary. But let's go to the first side. So you're gonna start turning your right leg in. So come into the squat first. Low, wide squat, turn your right knee in, tap it down. Now, lift your right knee up, so left leg straightens. Step your right leg back out and turn it out again. So you come back to that wide squat. Turn your left knee in, tap it down, lift your left knee up, step it back, wide squat. Turn your right knee in, tap it down, lift your right knee up, step it back, wide squat. Turn your left knee in, lift your knee up, step your left foot back, wide squat. 2 more times both sides. Right knee in, tap it down, lift your knee up, step it back, wide squat. Left knee in, tap it down, lift your left knee up, step it back, wide squat. 1 more time both sides. Right knee taps in and down. Lift your right knee up, step it back, wide squat. Last one. Left knee goes in, tap it down, lift your left knee up, step it back, wide squat, hips up, heel toe together. Yeah, I'm a little out of breath. That was work, okay? But hopefully what you're getting a sense of, and this is what I want you to pay attention to as you do these exercises more and more, right, over the course of, your pelvic floor recovery, whatever you're recovering from. So whether it's childbirth or whether, it is something else that creates that instability or over rigidness, tension in your pelvic floor, whatever it is, when you're doing this, I want you to feel aware, become more conscious of how your pelvic floor feels when you're moving. So how does it feel when you squat down? Can you feel what your pelvic floor is doing? How does it feel when you lift your knee, right? How does it feel when there's asymmetry, right? All of those things. Become super aware of how your pelvic floor feels, right? We tend to be disconnected from that area of our bodies for all kinds of reasons. So hopefully this practice gives you the opportunity and even the encouragement to become more sensitive to your pelvic floor so that you can create healing. So thanks for doing this squat-friendly pelvic floor tone practice with me. I hope you found it useful. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below. And as always, thanks for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you back here on the mat again really soon. Until then, bye.